Hello, friends. I'm Chris. I'm with Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness, and I'd like you to welcome you to our Poise Pen. This is our weekly practice of mindfulness and prompted journaling. So, what I have in mind for this week is a continuation of what we did last week. I'm very interested right now in the mindfulness of self-compassion, and a fellow Texan, Dr. Kristen Neff from the University of Texas, runs the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion, has done some really great work in this area. So we're going to borrow for one of her activities today, and it's the meditation and the journaling are going to come from a practice that she has called How Would You Treat a Friend? Right. So what I think you'll need to be safe and comfortable during your practice, a comfortable place to sit. So you can see behind me, my seat today is going to be a blanket with a bolster on it. You could sit directly on the floor. You could be sitting at a chair or a desk. If you choose a chair, if you could, find a chair where you can comfortably rest the soles of your feet on the earth. I'd like you to have something in which to write, maybe a journal, maybe a notebook, and a pen or a pencil. Now, also based on the time that we have available, I'm also getting really interested in some self-administered body work. So I'd like you to have, if you have either like a massage oil, either one that you've made for yourself at home, I'll talk a little bit about that during the practice, or even a store-bought massage oil, that could work. A high-quality lotion could work. If you're using a lotion or an oil, I'd also recommend that you have some rags close by, maybe some old towels, something that you don't care so much about. If you don't have oil, you don't have a lotion, please don't let that from keeping you from doing the practice for today. We can do these same things that we're going to do without them. So again, I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness, and we're going to get started with our self-compassion Poise Pen practice here in just a moment. So to start, find your way into a comfortable seat, and I'm going to give you some prompts for alignment of the body in a few moments. But I just want to preface this: this practice today is a continuation of the mindfulness of self-compassion that we did in the last class. One of the concerns that I have with the practice, I think it has the potential to be powerful, but I'm a little concerned that it also has the potential to be triggering. So like you guys, after you've done this practice, please feel free to give me feedback on the parts that doesn't work. I'm going to ask you to recall and visualize a really painful moment of your life. And it's purposeful. I have an intention for it. So first and foremost, honor yourself. And if that doesn't feel safe for you, I wouldn't do it. Choose a different moment. But we'll stick with the process, see what you think for today. And again, give me feedback and we'll adjust from there. Right now, from your comfortable seated position, first of all, find a seat that you can sustain. So find a position that allows your pelvis to rotate forward rather than drawing back. And then press down into your seat, lengthen out of your heart and the crown of your head, maybe on a big, full body, life-affirming inhale. And then on an exhale, maintain that alignment of your spinal column. Let your soft tissues fold down toward the earth. Now, if it feels safe and comfortable for you to close your eyes, close down your eyes. But if that doesn't feel safe and comfortable, no problem. Leave your eyes open, maybe with a soft gaze. And let's start with a cleansing breath. Draw on a full and complete inhale. And then as you exhale, let out a ha sound. And come back to a natural breath. And I'm going to start just offering some mindfulness cues, and then we're going to go into a visualization exercise. For now, orient yourself to your body. Orient yourself to your body. Notice where your anchors to this present moment experience are. Maybe it's the pressure and the sensation of your cushion or your mat or your chair pressing up into your seat, or the pinky edge blades of your feet pressing into the earth. You might notice the temperature and the pressure of your hands wherever they're resting on your body. Or maybe it's the sensation of your breath. When you have a thought arise, for now, just notice it. You can gently identify it for what it is it's thinking. And then as it drifts away, come back to whichever anchor to your present moment experience is most provocative. Check into with your body and just notice if you have any muscular engagement and gripping occurring in your body right now that's not necessary for you to maintain a long spine. So sometimes this manifests like tension. We have shoulders, especially when we're feeling pretty uptight. The shoulders can be hiked up along the ears. And if you notice that, see if you can let them fold down toward the earth. Or often in me, it's either the flesh around my eyes or my jaw. Once again, as the thoughts rise up, that's okay. You're not doing it wrong. And it doesn't mean that we're bad at meditation when that happens. It just means that it's the nature of the mind that the thoughts will arise and fall away again. But identify them, recognize them for what they are, thinking. Let that thought float away. We don't have to shove it away. But if we notice it with curiosity and kindness, does it just float away on its own and then come back to your anchor? Right. So if where we're going in this exercise this morning, if at any time it starts to feel really scary, you can always come back, shift back to these anchors to your present moment experience. Usually when I get really freaked out and caught up in my head about something, I'm either flogging myself over a past event or I'm locked in anxiety or worry about a future event, right? Neither of those things are real. We're not in that moment. Usually when I'm right here, right now, everything is okay. Everything is okay. It's not always great, but it's usually safe. So again, if the exercise gets to feel unsafe, come back here, come back to that anchor to the present moment experience. All right, so I'm going to give you a couple of visualization exercises, and for each one, I'm going to ask you to pull up a memory of a pretty specific situation, and I'm going to give you certain things that I'd like you to really attend to and pay attention. And then I'll give you a few moments to sit in silence for that before we move on to other parts of the exercise. So I'd like you to look into your mind and find the memory of a moment that you consider to be a low point. A moment where maybe you were not the version of yourself that you wanted to be. So this might have been a terrible mistake. It might have been a setback that you perceive as a failure. It could be any time where you were really challenged to feel good about yourself. And as you retrieve this moment in your memory, I'd like you to look for certain things. What were the feelings that you felt in that moment, in this low moment? What were the exact feelings that you felt? Where were those feelings embodied? Where did you notice those feelings? What was the sensation like? And what was either your reaction or your response to yourself into that circumstance? What did you do? What did you say? And with what you said, whether that was verbally out loud to someone else or internally, silently to yourself, I'd like you to really attend to the tone. What was the tone in your voice? What was the tone of those thoughts? And I'm going to give you a few moments to sit with us. All right. If your mind is still in that moment of a low point from your life, I'd like you to bring your heart, bring your mind back to this present moment. So check in with your anchors. Where do you feel the earth pressing up into your body? Where do you feel your breath? Maybe place one or both hands on your heart. Beautiful, courageous work, friend. That is hard. That is what we just did is really, really hard. It was hard for me, and I'm sure it was hard for you. And it was hard with a purpose. We're going to do something with that. We're going to go somewhere with that. You can leave your hand on your heart, or you can release it down into your lap. But I'd like you to look into your mind, find a memory, retrieve a memory of a time where a close friend or a loved one came to you in a challenged moment. They came to you in a moment where maybe they had not been their best version of themselves, and they were in pain. They were in pain over it. So I'd like you to find that moment. Think about what that's like. And I'd like for you to notice certain things. What were your feelings in that moment when you were there with that beloved person in your life? And they shared with you this low moment and how they were feeling, what they were thinking. What did you feel in the moment? Where did you feel that in your body? Where were the embodied sensations? And I'd like you to remember what your response or your reaction was in that moment. What did you say? What did you do? And I'd like you to really notice and attend to the tone that you used. Either if you were speaking to your loved one, what was the tone of your voice? What were the tone of the conversation from on your end? And anything that came up internally, what was the tone for that as well? And I'll give you a few moments to sit with us. If you're still in that moment of holding space for your loved one at their lowest moment, maybe well, first of all, start to bring yourself back to this present moment. What's your most provocative sensation of your breath? For me, it's a cool rush of air on my nostrils on the inhale. What's the other most provocative sensation of your body? Right now, it's the earth pressing up into my ankles, where my ankles are coming into contact with the earth. But find yours. And then maybe place one or both hands on your heart. And just recognize and honor yourself for your courage. That's hard too. That's hard too. That process, um, in that role of holding space for a loved one when they're at their lowest moment is hard. And it's courageous and it's really, really important. And going back to take a look at that moment again is courageous as well. You can keep your eyes open with a soft gaze, but I want to share some things with you that are from Dr. Kristen Neff. She's at the University of Texas, but she's also the director for the Center for Mindful Self-Compassion. And Dr. Neff says that self-compassion is made up of three components. The first component is self-kindness. So self-kindness looks like having the courage and the willingness and the presence of mind to step in and interrupt the often abusive cycles that we get into in how we speak and how we treat ourselves during difficulty, during adversity. So maybe offering encouraging words or encouraging affirmations. Second component is common humanity. And the way that I understand this, what common humanity is a recognition of the fact that suffering is part of the human experience. And the mistakes that we make, the setbacks that we have, the pain that's inflicted on us by other people, it's difficult for us. It's difficult. Those are valid and legitimate. And those things have all happened. Those mistakes have all been made by other people before. Those difficulties, those challenges, those hurts, and those traumas have all been experienced by other people before. And that doesn't minimize our trauma and our experience, but it means this is something that we have in common with others. And the third component of self-compassion is mindfulness. So this is recognizing in the moment, this is hard, this is suffering. The same way as in a mindfulness practice, if we had a thought rise up, we'd identify this thinking. When the difficulty comes up, recognizing this is hard, this is suffering. So again, the three components of self-compassion are self-kindness, common humanity, and mindfulness. So what do we do with this? Dr. Neff says that there are three gateways, three doorways into self-compassion. And the first is to offer yourself kindness and understanding. Right, and we'll talk more about that probably after the journaling, I would expect. The second is reminding ourselves that suffering is part of our shared human experience. And I also think in the case of this very specific situation, those low moments that we have, those low moments where it was most difficult to feel genuine love and compassion for ourselves, are also part of the shared human experience. So our low moment may look different from another person's low moment, but they have one. They have one. We all do. And the third doorway is to be mindful of our thoughts and moments and emotions so that we can recognize greater peace, so we can find greater peace. As I mentioned earlier, usually when I'm really suffering, I'm in my head and I'm really suffering, I'm in the future or I'm in the past. Sometimes the present's not great, but it's usually safe. And it's often much better than the horror show that I've allowed to happen in my head and my heart. Right, so finding that mindfulness in those links to our present moment experience can often be a great comfort. So one tool that Dr. Neff talks about when we're in these low moments, she calls it a self-compassion break. Right, so we're going to go through this briefly before we go into our journaling. So you've already got your hands, one or both hands in your heart. And if you don't, place them on there for a moment. Just repeat this to yourself. We may still be stinging. I'm still stinging a little bit from the first scenario, right? So if that's the case for you too, repeat to yourself, this is a moment of suffering, right? This is the mindfulness component. This is a moment of suffering. And then repeat to yourself, suffering is a part of life. This is our common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. And then repeat this to yourself, may I be kind to myself. May I forgive myself. And this is our act of self-kindness, self-forgiveness. May I be kind to myself. May I forgive myself. So if you can remember these tools, these three phrases to repeat to ourselves during the moments where we're really struggling the most. This is a moment of suffering. Suffering is part of the human experience. May I be kind to myself. Maybe we try this on the next time that we're in our difficulty and see if it makes a difference. Find an anchor to the present moment again, whatever that anchor feels like. And then gently blink your eyes open. If your hands are still on your heart as mine are, you can start to release them down. We're going to do a little bit of self-massage before we do the journaling. So in my case, because I'm going to use an oil, I'm going to set an old towel. Used to be one of my good towels. Now it's an old towel. I'm going to set that on my mat. The oil that I have is a blend of sweet almond oil and ylang ylang essential oils, right? So I use an organic cold pressed sweet almond oil. It's not the only carrier oil that I use, but it's a frequent one. And we're going to focus today on the feet. So if you apply a little oil to the hands, and then just start working this into the feet, and maybe start just oiling up the whole surface, even between the toes. And the bottoms of my feet tend to be quite dry, a little bit of vata element there. So take as much oil, use as much as you need. And I find the heel of my hand along that plantar fascia lata can be, or that plantar fascia can be really nice. Sometimes rubbing the knuckles up and down the surface of my foot. And I also find starting at the toe, using both thumbs and making a broad stripe down the whole surface of my foot. And then alternating, there's a massage technique, it's called the peel. If you put the thumbs together and then pull them apart, that can be really nice too. So what I'd like you to do is do whatever feels good for your body, but you might start out striping the thumbs down the whole surface of the foot, and then coming back to that peel technique. One of the habits of the ancient yogis, an Ayurvedic habit, is called Abhyanga, and it's self-massage. And it's a really healing practice. There are a lot of people, one, who don't really feel a sense of grounding and connection to their own bodies. And there are also an awful lot of us who struggle to have genuine love, care, and affection for ourselves and for our bodies, right? So sometimes we have these stories about our bodies that aren't very positive and they don't feel very good, right? So I'm finding, this is what my teacher and mentor, Kate Stillman, has taught me, and it's what I'm learning from my experience as I get deeper and deeper into my self-massage practice. It's a beautiful tool for starting to recognize how beautiful and strong and amazing our bodies are. And in the Next Level Human program, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about self-massage, and we'll talk specifically about oils. But in general, what I would say, without any discussion about doshas or anything like that, in the summertime, like early September in Houston, it's still really hot. So all other things being equal, for my once or twice a week full body massage, full body oil massage before a shower, I like a cooling oil. So I've got an organic cold pressed coconut oil. And I like an essential oil, a scent that promotes a bit of intimacy. So I like ylang ylang, right? And that's what I use for my self massage. Wintertime, an organic cold pressed sesame oil is probably a better choice. It's more of a warming oil. And I'm going to start to transition to the other foot. Before you do, you might take a moment, just use your towel and rag and wipe the excess oil off. But here's the other thing, the feet in particular, like if you struggle to get to bed earlier, or you have, like with life, it gives us occasions, family events and such, that sometimes get us to bed later than we'd like. A grounding oil, like one of the oils that I brought out here this morning, is a cedar wood. I use cedar wood a lot, one, because I love the way it smells, but it's super grounding. So sometimes if I get to bed much later than I would have liked, before I go to bed, I rub some of that. I use a sweet almond carrier oil with a pretty generous dosing of cedarwood essential oils. And it's very, very grounding. And it helps me make the most out of the rest that I get that night. One of the things that I've been working on in terms of healthy habits in my life is having a better pre-sleep ritual. Like even the nights that I get to bed early, often I've got myself in this not quite panic, but sort of frenetic pace of trying to check one more email or edit one more video or get a couple more things, put a couple more calendar entries into my calendar before I go to bed. And then once I get to bed, my mind is still racing at that pace and I don't sleep well. So I think, like this is just my opinion, but I've spent a couple nights a week over the last couple weeks really trying to focus in on dialing in what is an evening routine that really optimizes for a restful night of sleep look like. And one of the things that's really nice is that full body oil massage before the shower, and then maybe a hot bath. But I also think if we have those moments of our lives where we feel like we're not our best version of ourselves, and maybe we're struggling to love ourselves in those moments, part of the self-compassion break, or maybe a follow-up to the self-compassion break, is offering ourselves a little bit of physical, tangible, loving touch, such as what we might do with an oil massage. And this is like a foot massage in particular is often it feels like such an indulgence. And for many of us, it's the sort of thing we kind of wish our partner would do for us most often. And I think for at least myself, I tend to forget this is a gift that I can give myself at any time. All right, I'm going to wrap that second foot up, literally and metaphorically. Remove the excess oil. And then I'm just going to step away for a moment. Before I touch my laptop, I'm going to wash my hands. And if you'd like to do the same thing before we go into the journal, I'd invite you to do that. And then we can reconvene and meet in maybe 90 seconds or 2 minutes, and we'll look at our journaling prompts for today. All right, friends, welcome back. So the journaling prompts for today, I'm going to read through them, and then I'm going to mute myself, but I'll be here the whole time. Take all the time you need. Respond to these at any level that you're comfortable with. And then when you're finished, just let me know, and we'll reconvene. I'm happy to share some of my responses with you, and whatever you're comfortable sharing with me, I would be really interested in hearing what your thoughts are. But I'd like you to consider these questions and then journal for these questions. How did you respond to your friend's pain, right? That situation where you were holding space for them. What did you notice about what you did or what you said? And what did you notice about the tone in which you spoke, either the internal or external tone again? The second two-part question, how did you respond to your own pain? What did you notice about what you did or what you said, or the tone in which you spoke. The third, this is a three-part question. Did you notice a difference in the two responses? And why do you think that is? Whose voice was behind your response to your own pain? Was it your voice or was it someone else's? And what other factors or fears do you think contributed? And the last, it's a single question. How would things change for you if you responded to your own pain in the same way that you just responded to your friend? And so I just want to recognize these are really tough questions. This could be a really challenging exercise. All right, friends, so now you have the journaling prompts. What I encourage you to do is pause the recording. That way you'll still have the journaling prompts up on your screen. Take all the time that you need to respond to these questions to your level of satisfaction. And then you can press play and Sonia and I will share our responses with you. That being said, I would love for this to be, even as a recording, as interactive as possible. If you have some thoughts and observations that you're comfortable with and interested in sharing with me, message me on social media. You can text me at 281-728-3896 or email me at chris@transformationnationyogaandwellness.com, and I would love to hear what your thoughts are. All right, so we'll get started with the discussion portion. So I'm curious, to the degree that you're comfortable sharing, Sonia, what was your experience with the meditation, and what were your thoughts from the journaling prompts? Did that bring anything up for you?
The experience with the meditation was definitely tough. It was doable, and I welcomed it because I know there was a purpose for it, but it was tough to think about something that happened to myself and also a loved one or somebody that I care about.
It's really hard.
Yeah. But because there was a purpose, I didn't mind it at all. I welcomed it.
Okay, awesome. That's great feedback.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable sharing your thoughts on the journaling prompts? And if you're interested, I'm happy to share mine as well.
Absolutely. So the first one is who came to mind, a friend or a loved one or somebody else. It was a friend. It was not just to give you some context without getting into many details. She lost her 2.5-year-old son, 3 years ago. He choked on a grape. It was bad. It's a really, really sad situation. And it's so interesting, Chris, because yesterday was the little boy's birthday. And that's the person I thought about today, when this prompt came up. So how was I there for my friend? I cried with her. I mean, there's nothing you can say to somebody, right? Nothing. In fact, I wouldn't want to hear anything like, oh, he's in a better place or anything like that. Don't tell me anything. So what I did, I was just there with her and physically next to her. I was there when she was crying. I was there when she wanted to talk about her son. Just be there with her, hold her, cry with her, listen to her. I would describe it like a mothering sensation, or I was mothering her in a way.
I love that. Yeah.
And how did I embody that? I felt it in my gut. It was heart-wrenching, but I felt it in my gut. And the truth is, I didn't know what to say.
Yeah.
So I did the only thing I knew how to do, just physically be with her. And that's what I did for her.
That's amazing. What a beautiful response for your friend.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that we would have this prompt today when yesterday was her son's birthday.
That is really interesting timing. Yeah.
But I believe there's a purpose in everything.
I think so too. Yeah. So how does that contrast with how, if you're comfortable sharing, with how you responded to and interfaced with yourself at a difficult moment or a low moment?
My difficult moment that I brought up, and I'm sure there's other, but the one that really hit me was when I was 17. I was so young, and what happened, I blamed myself. Where did I put depression, negative self-talk.
Mm,
I had an accusing tone with myself, blame. I was
yes.
harder on myself. I was harder on myself. And looking back, I'm 37 now. This was 20 years ago. Like, wow, it was never my fault. And I just wish that I could go back in time, or hug this 37-year-old version of me, hug that 17-year-old version of me, and just tell
Yes.
her everything's going to be okay. You're going to make it. This isn't it. This isn't the end of the world. But I was 17 and I had nobody to mother me or nurture me the way I
Yeah.
wanted it to be. It wasn't a big deal to anybody else but me. Very hard on myself.
Yeah, that's really tough. And how beautiful to be able to look back on your 17-year-old self now with that kind of mothering love and that kind of compassion and perspective that you weren't able to offer yourself in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it's interesting because I think of that 17-year-old version of me today, that's 9/11, and I was just thinking, okay, 9/11, it's been 20 years. Where was I 20 years ago? I was a senior in high school, and it's right around the time that this situation happened for me. Um, but it's interesting to look back and see that version of yourself and kind of compare it to where you are now and how much more and how much
Yes.
more work there is to do. um, you know it's better, but there's always room for improvement, or there's always more growth.
Yeah, that's right.
So again, it's very interesting that this journal prompt came around that time when I'm already reminiscing about who I was 20 years ago and where I was 20 years ago.
Yeah, destiny.
Yeah.
Did you have any thoughts on like what it would look like or what it would change for you if you could have that more mothering kind of love for yourself in the moment during setbacks and low moments?
Yeah, I wrote I would have been more in tune with my self-worth and
Mm,
know that what happened was not my fault, and that it wasn't the end of the world. um, Yeah, I would have been more in tune with my self-worth. And I say that because I just put like a lot of blame on myself.
yeah,
And that's when I wrote, and I would just wish I could hug that 17-year-old version of me.
I love that. Maybe through meditation you can.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, are you open to me sharing my responses with you?
Uh-huh.
Yes. So I thought about this really close friend of mine when we were getting to know each other. We were kind of sharing a bit about ourselves and who we were. And, part of that, like what are the joys that contributed to who we are and what are the pains? And this friend shared with me like her low moment where she'd made a mistake that had her like really probably shame is an accurate response, but really stinging over this moment. And um, I remember hurting for her, seeing her, my friend in pain, really hurt me. And it's like I felt like this heavy cloak or this heavy blanket or a comforter pressing my heart downward. But I also like my response to her was really soft. And I remember like reflecting back, acknowledging her pain and that difficulty and in the memory of the moment, but also sharing a perspective that I felt like she couldn't see. Like in the situation as she shared it with me, there were other people involved. She was taking 100% responsibility for something that was a contribution
Mm-hmm.
issue. There were other people that contributed to that, and like I've seen it done. I've done this to other people and had other people do this to me, where somebody tries to open up, be vulnerable, and share pain, and somebody else says, "Well, if you think this is bad, here's something from my past." And it's like almost one-upsmanship. So I try to be really conscious of that, but I did want this friend of mine to know that like similar things have happened to me. I've made similar mistakes before, and I'm hurting over them as well. So I shared something like that in the moment. Um, from my pain, I remember this was when I hit bottom at the bottom of my drinking career. I was 35. And I remember in the moment being like absolutely frightened. I was so scared and I was so ashamed. This was my fault. This was something that I did. And like, so I had this really tight gripping in my belly that I wouldn't let up. And it was like this pulsing wave of a falling sensation from my sternum down to my belly, down almost to my groin, really. I remember feeling like everybody in the world knew about this mistake. And I remember feeling really judged and like people were gossiping about me. I have no idea if who, if anyone, knew about this, what they knew, or who, if anybody, was talking about it. Um, my tone with myself was so harsh, but I had like two things happening at the same time. So there was the harsh judging tone. Um, and I remember that harsh judging tone, the stories that my head was telling my heart were things like, you are not a good person. Good people don't do that. Like really harsh stuff like piece of shit type of language. Um, and it was really cold and unyielding. But there was also at the same time there was another piece that was, it wasn't kind and friendly, but it was more objective. And it was like, oh, this happened, right? This, like, this is what it is. This has happened now. It's too late to do anything about it. But what do we do from here? What are you going to do from this point moving forward? And that, like, that's not where I'd like to be long term. But that neutral and objective voice being there in the moment gave me some peace and comfort in trying to find a constructive way to move forward and reframe my life and try to salvage some sense of being a decent human being. Um, so like you, a huge difference. That the harshness in that voice, what I recognize from that, it's my voice, and it's kind of the harsh and judging voice that I use for like distant figures, like politicians when they make dumb decisions, and I go, oh, I can't believe this bonehead did. So like it was that same kind of judgment. So I think like you, I think if I could consistently learn to treat myself more during setbacks, low points, and mistakes in the way that I would treat a friend who I love very much, I think my recovery would be from that. Like, how do I reset and rebuild my life from this point? Would be quicker. It would be more graceful. I think it would be easier for me to maintain a consistent, positive, and loving attitude for myself. And I actually think it would make it easier for me to maybe soften a bit on those other distant people that I'm judging a little bit and not offering them the kind of full context about, well, what a complex position that this person is in, and how many different things they have to think about in that, rather than just going, oh, what a bonehead. I can't believe this person got elected into office.
Right, right, right. You know, one of the things that I like that you said in the meditation, and I think it was three key points. One of them, actually, can you repeat them because one of them really, really stuck with me.
So Dr. Neff says the three elements of self-compassion are self-kindness,
Mhm.
common humanity, and mindfulness.
Oh, okay. I remember mindfulness to be mindful in the moment that something's happening or why your actions are like that. And it reminded me that when I'm like really stressed out at work and I come home and I'm nitpicky about things being clean or not clean, I'm very OCD about cleaning. Lately, or overeating too when my hormones are out of whack in the month. I'm more kinder to myself when I recognize, like, okay, I'm nitpicking again, or okay, I'm like going binge
Hmm.
on cake and donuts. To be more kind to myself, uh, some things are out of your control, but to recognize when that's happening and to kind of just step back and be kind to yourself and to be able, I mean, to me, it's a big win to be able to recognize,
100%.
you know,
Even if we don't
yeah,
do anything about it, just noticing it is a big win.
right, right.
Yeah.
And that's
That-
not who I was even a couple of years ago. I just acted on those emotions and spent 2 hours cleaning or, ate so much that I felt sick after. But I love being able to recognize, okay, this is happening because of this, and it's okay. I love that.
Yeah, that is so powerful, Sonia. And what a beautiful share. Yeah, same
Mm,
for me. I used to feel like I was a victim to my emotions and my responses, and sometimes I still am. But like you, more often, it's coming up that I can recognize it in the moment. I agree. It feels really good to be able to say, okay, here's my trigger behavior. I know that this happens when I'm in a situation like whatever just happened. I had a tough day at work. Things aren't exactly the way that I would like. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. So I thought about that during the meditation of the things I do and how I can recognize it now, And that comes with age, I think. And sometimes I beat myself up about, oh, I'm getting older, I'm tired, I don't have the same energy I did. But with age also really comes wisdom. I mean, I wish the 17-year-old me had that wisdom, even the 25-year-old me.
Yeah, I can definitely identify with that. I also think, yes, I think it comes with age and wisdom. From my perspective, you've worked really hard on yourself through your yoga practice, through your meditation to develop yourself into the person that you want, the future version of yourself that you want to be. And I think that kind of presence and work makes a difference too.
Absolutely. I mean, and the work you're doing with Transformation Nation too,
Thanks.
and you're sharing that with all of us.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
Can I ask, what did you think about the self massage? Is this a component that's worth adding in? Maybe rotate through using techniques for other parts of the body?
Yes, and Christina and I talked about this when I took her soulful sequencing, and I loved it when I did it then, and I just don't know why I haven't done it after that. My feet smell great because I'm very close to my feet. They're very soft, and it felt good. I don't know what do you call this? When I was massaging, I kind of got chills.
Hmm.
Kind of like when I get a full body massage by somebody else. And like you said, you forget that this is accessible to you and that you can do this for yourself. It's wonderful, and it was a wonderful way to meditate too.
Okay, awesome. We'll keep that in this practice then, and we'll rotate different. I try to apply different techniques to different parts of the body each week. And when we get into next level human, we've got a whole habit on self massage that I think will help support developing that as a habit if you'd like to.
Oh yeah, I'm so excited about that too.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'm gonna close down this practice, Sonia. After I stop the recording, can I keep you on for just a couple minutes to ask you a question?
Yep.
Okay. Well, let's start by settling, finding great posture again. Find length along your spinal column. Take one more cleansing breath, a deep, life-affirming inhale. And exhale, let that go with a ha sound. Ah. And then if you choose, you could bring your hands into heart center. Thank you, friend, for your courage to this practice and your courage and vulnerability in your beautiful shares for today. And I invite you, if you choose, to draw your thumbs to the space between your eyebrows. Blessings to you and your family. And that concludes our practice for today. Amazing, courageous work, friends. Again, I'm Chris. I'm from Transformation Nation Yoga and Wellness. And this was our Poise Pen class where we focused on the Kristen Neff, How Would You Treat a Friend exercise.